everybody. My name's Polly Pistol, and I'm an alcoholic. By God's grace, in a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, I haven't had a drink since April 11th of 1977, and for that I am eternally grateful. And that's the West Connect group in Jacksonville, Florida, and we meet every Monday night at 8 o'clock, and if you're ever in Jacksonville, just give us a call. Now that Dave and I are sober, we're in the phone book. We'll answer the phone. Chris, thank you for inviting me. I don't even remember where I met Chris. Was he in Cocoa Beach? Cocoa Beach. And this is my kind of AA. You guys are just on. And I lived in Southern California for 21 years. And we had the best AA. And we moved up to Bellingham, Washington, and we recreated the fellowship we crave. And in fact, Dave and I are going back to Washington on Sunday, and we're speaking the following weekend at a conference we started. So I'm just so excited, and you're structured. I love structure, and I can't tell you how fabulous this is. We don't have this in Jacksonville, and it doesn't seem like anybody wants it. So I just can't tell you how much I love it, because this is my kind of AA. My husband used to say our home group in Southern California was the Monday night Seal Beach Speakers Meeting. And our home group in Bellingham, Washington was the Third Legacy Group. And always on Monday night. Seems like we always have a home group on Monday night. Have for like 30 years. And but it's just this kind of enthusiasm. And I mean, I can tell you right now, if it weren't fun, I couldn't have stayed. And this is the kind of AA that I walked in and I said, Chris, I feel the vibe. And it's just absolutely fabulous. Fran, thanks for driving up from Cape Coral and hanging out with me tonight. This is great. Thank you. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, and we get to connect. And that's what's the other thing that's beautiful about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I saw some people take chips. Congratulations. We had a newcomer. If anybody is in this room and doesn't have a sponsor, get one. Absolutely get one. The beauty of sponsorship is Fran and I do long-distance sponsorship, but it's so beautiful when we can hook up and see each other in person. So I'm just telling you, it's the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous, one alcoholic sharing with another alcoholic. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous gives me the instructions I'm supposed to do. It tells me that I'm supposed to share in a general way what it used to be like, what happened, and what I'm trying to be like tonight. And I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. On page 29 of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about that in our personal stories from our own experience, we're here to share how I formed a relationship with God. And when I leave here tonight, I hope you know that I have formed a relationship with God. Because the big book has many things, and the main object of this book is to find a power greater than yourself that can solve your problems. And what we're supposed to do is stay close to Him and perform His works well. I mean, it's just on and on and on. That it tells me that what's necessary for me to do is to have a relationship with God. And I'm grateful tonight for the God in my life. I am so grateful for the God in my life. I love my life. I absolutely love my life. And one of the things that I know about the disease of alcoholism is that it is a progressive illness. So I'm here to tell you that I believe at 35 years of sobriety, because the book tells me that this is a progressive illness. And if this is a progressive illness, at 35 years of sobriety, I am more alcoholic than I was when I came here. So the longer I'm sober, the closer I get to the drink. And what I believe is that I don't need to go to less meetings. I need to go to more meetings. I don't need to sponsor less people. I need to sponsor more people. And I don't need to be in less service. I need to be in more service. And if you want to jumpstart your life, get busy in AA. I can't even begin to tell you the joy of a busy life. I mean, my God, I'm 72 years old and I am on fire with AA. It is fabulous. It is just fabulous. And I can't encourage you enough to do that. And the longer we're here, I believe the more active we need to be. Because I tell you what, the further I get from the drink, the closer I am. Because what happens is, I'm glad to see people still coming in. I'm glad to see them beaten up. I'm glad to see them come in here because I don't want it to ever look like it's getting better out there. It's not good out there, and it's good in here. It's good in here. I'm living, breathing proof that you can be a real alcoholic, as described in the doctor's opinion in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I do not come from alcoholic parents. Now, I have been told, that shake an alcoholic's family tree and an alcoholic will fall out. Now, if that is the truth, it very possibly could have been my mother's father, my grandfather. However, I don't ever recall him drinking like I drank. So I don't know. I don't know about it. I have a theory. I have an absolute theory. And that is that if my dad would have took a drink of alcohol, that he would have been an alcoholic. Because he had all of the symptoms. And that is he was restless, irritable, and discontent. And he was always nervous, and he was really anxious. And all the stuff, you could just start making a list of all the stuff we say. No self-worth, always anxious. I took a drink of alcohol. I didn't even know what I was doing. But all I did, I just took a drink of alcohol. I didn't even know what the deal was. I was 18 years old, and it just soothed the madness that was tightened in my gut. And it just seemed like for the first time in my life I could take a breath. And I was 18 years old. And I'm kind of ahead of myself, so I'm going to tell you about my first drink because it's really important. I don't ever want to forget my first drink, and I don't ever want to forget the gift of desperation when I got here. Because I believe to be desperate for this program is a gift, an absolute gift. I'm a love child. I don't have any abuse. I don't have any of that going on. I'm an only child. My parents loved me. There's a book out called How It Works, and it's about Clarence Snyder's life. And the author in this book says there seems to be two things that cause alcoholism: being loved too much or not enough. So if that's the case, I'm the too much. And not only that, I was an only child. So I had the gift of love. I didn't know I had the gift of love. I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I would have sworn to you that nobody loved me because my soul was dead. My soul was dead. I couldn't feel it. I got sober in treatment. You hear a lot of times people will say, well, they didn't have treatment centers back when I got sober. Well, I tell you what, 35 years ago, I went through 3 of them. So they had lots of treatment centers. And I went through a treatment center, and we'd sit around doing group, just like they do today. Nothing's very different. Just like they do, and everybody's telling these horrific stories and all these horrible things that are happening to little boys and girls. And I'm looking at them, and I'm saying, well, I can understand why that happened to you, but I can understand why you're an alcoholic because of what happened to you, but why am I an alcoholic? Because those things didn't happen to me. And what I know today is the disease of alcoholism is equal opportunity. It doesn't matter. If we got the gene, we got the gene. That's all there is to it. We got the gene. And I didn't know I had a gene, and that's kind of how I feel about it. Now, I don't know that my daddy was alcoholic. I mean, I have no way of proving it. He died at 60 years old, and he died with 60 years of sobriety. And my mother died at 87, and she died with 87 years of sobriety. And I will assure you, my parents weren't the least bit impressed with my sobriety. I mean, their deal was just don't drink. That's what you do. I was raised Southern Baptist. And I was raised down in Texas, and I was raised right where they took the Bible Belt and gave it an extra pull. And I mean to tell you, they said, "Thou shalt not drink," and we didn't. That is absolutely how it happened. And at 18 years old, I married an Air Force officer. And I just knew I'd found my knight in shining armor, and we were going to sail off into the sunset and live happily ever after. Now, I knew about God. I had been to churches. I had been to Sunday school. I had been to church. I'd been to Sunday night. I'd been to Wednesday night. I mean, we went to church. And I knew about God. But I'll tell you what, the God I knew about, these preachers used to get behind the podium, and I'm telling you, their faces would get red and their veins were sticking out, and they were screaming into the audience, "If you've thought it, you've done it." And I don't know about any of you guys, but when I was 9 years old, I thought a lot. I'm telling you, I knew that what I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is hopeless, absolutely hopeless, because I believed that there was no way that God could love me. I was way too much of a sinner for God to love me. But thank God for the chapter to the agnostic. Because what happens is Bill makes God approachable. And we get to have this God. And what I began to see is that I wasn't hopeless. But I felt so hopeless when I got here that God would love someone like me. I've got kind of a theory. I got lots of theories. They don't mean a thing if they're not in the book. They're just my theory. And that is that I'm blessed. I get to sponsor a lot of women. And in doing so, it has been my experience that it is easier to bring somebody to God who does not know God than to have to unlearn a punishing God. And that has been my experience. Whether that works for everybody, I don't know. But what has happened is I have had a lot to unlearn, because the God that I had is nothing like the God I have today. The loving God that I have today that absolutely is crazy about me. Absolutely crazy about me. And when I do bad things, He just loves me. And knows how bad I feel about that, and doesn't pound on me like I thought He did. At any rate, I know what's wrong with me today. What's wrong with me is I have a spiritual malady. I have a disease called alcoholism, and it's a disease of the soul. I have a spiritual malady. And the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells me that if I am suffering from a spiritual malady, nothing is enough. You cannot love me enough, you cannot give me enough, you cannot do enough. There is not enough. Without a God in my life, there is not enough. You can't do enough for me. When I was 18 years old, I married an Air Force officer. And like I said, this was my knight in shining armor. And I mean, I'll tell you, today, I get to fly on airplanes a lot. And if they don't let those people in uniform on first, I'm protesting. I love men in uniform. I think they are beautiful. And I want them to go first because they deserve to. They fight for our country. And I married this man, and I had no idea. I mean, I was just in love with love. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea what was ahead of me. And I was married about 2 weeks, and I get an invitation in the mail, and it's from the base commander's wife, and I'm invited to a coffee, and there's a big red mandatory stamped on it, which means I go no matter what. And I go to this coffee, and the base commander's wife is standing up behind a podium just like I am, and we were sitting at tables, all of us little second lieutenants' wives, and she was going to explain to us what our role was in our husband's career and how we were going to have the right dinner parties, attend the right dinner parties, all the functions at the base, everything that was going on. We would be there and we would be dressed appropriately with the right length gloves, all the things that we would do in order to enhance our husband's career. And I'm 18 years old. I'm uneducated. I have got the disease. I've got the gene. I haven't put any alcohol to it or not. And I believe in the gene because I didn't come from alcoholic parents, but I seem to produce alcoholics. But I don't know if it's true or not. Nobody can prove it, okay? It's just a theory. So, at any rate, I have all of these feelings. And I'm going here and I know these women are educated. I'm not educated. These women are educated and they're sophisticated. And I am overwhelmed with feelings of inadequacy. There is no way what am I going to do? I can't. I even get teased today because I never say words quite right. And I was just, I don't dare open my mouth. And I was just terrified of being amongst these women that I saw so differently than me. Now, I had no idea. I've had those feelings all my life. I had no idea that if I put a drink to that's going to be better. I had no idea. But what happens is a few weeks later, there's an officer's wives luncheon. And again, mandatory that I be there. And I go to this luncheon, and there's a fountain there. And it's got stuff coming out of it. And I hate to tell you, but my first drink was a really wussy drink. And it was sherry. This fountain was pouring sherry. And all of these ladies were putting their glass up under the fountain, and I put my glass up under the fountain. And I can remember it as if it were yesterday. Because what happened is I took that drink of alcohol and something happened to me. And the other thing is I had heard in that Baptist church that people who drank were bad. And these people were not bad. These were good people. And so I took a drink of alcohol. And what happened is I absolutely had, it was like a spiritual awakening. That all of that angst that was inside my gut, I don't know if there's other type A personalities. We have it pretty naturally, but if you're untreated alcoholic, it's really bad. And I just took that drink of alcohol and I just felt like I could breathe. I just felt like I could take a breath. And I could be in the presence of these women. I could nod in the right places. I could laugh in the right places. I just, for the first time, felt like I could fit. I could just fit. And I had no idea that happened to me and it didn't happen to them. I didn't understand. I just thought that happened to everybody. If you took a drink of alcohol, that's what would happen. And what happened to me is I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis of what happened through my disease of alcoholism. I'm not a party girl. I didn't go out and have, I went out at appropriate times to the officers' club and all those things, but I didn't drink in bars. I drank at home. I was married to a SAC pilot, so he was gone for years at a time. I had these two little boys that I was responsible for. And the disease of alcoholism took me to a place I could not take care of those children. And what happened is that all of this, him being gone, if anybody's involved in all that, you know what I'm talking about. If you've not lived it, you haven't a clue. But if you've lived it, you know. And I ended up drinking a lot. I ended up going into the base hospital, and I was a nervous wreck. I mean, I was one of these people that was having a nervous breakdown every 20 minutes, and we ended up being stationed in a place called Loring Air Force Base, Maine, the very tippy top of Maine. And it was like 50 below zero outside. I can't let my kids out. I mean, it was the armpit of the world, and in my opinion, again, and these little boys were driving me crazy. I didn't have any tools to be a parent, none. And what happened for me is these doctors gave me some medication. And they gave me Librium, Valium, Seconal, and Nimutol, and I drank alcohol. And I will assure you, if you take those kind of drugs, you're not an active alcoholic. I call myself a couch potato alcoholic. I did my dying on my living room sofa. And I just watched soap operas and listened to Joan Baez sing the blues. One of the things that I love about this program is this is where sweet relationships are repaired. And the bedevilments, it tells us that we're having trouble with personal relationships. All of the things, emotions to the extremes, all the things that we are. And it just lays out the disease of alcoholism. And what happened for me is that was me. I was absolutely incapable of taking care of my children. And they were left in my care. And I love the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I especially love the family afterwards. That's where I think all the good stuff is. That's where it says that we absolutely insist on being happy, joyous, and free. All the good stuff is in there. But it also says in there that the head of the household caused most of the problems. And what they're talking about is, Bill didn't know women could be alcoholic. So, they thought they were just the men alcoholic. But what they're talking about is the head of the household, is the alcoholic, caused most of the problems. And it tells me that I will not even the score in this lifetime. So what I've learned is, it's not my responsibility for my kids to love me. It's my responsibility for me to love them and for me to accept them. I'm the one with the program. Now today, it's a different story in my life. But in the beginning, that's the way it is. I love that we are here in this program to take responsibility for our actions. And what happened for me is because of a disease called alcoholism, I ended up being a child abuser. I am a woman who abused her children. I am a woman who never, ever should have had her children because my children have been traumatized at my hand because I was mean and abusive to these children. I have a son who's 28 years sober in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what happens is I've had a lot of opportunities to hear James tell his story. In fact, he and I do the book. We do the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous sometimes together, and so I've been we've been together and been able to share, and I get to listen to this, and this program is amazing, that we can go from where I came from with these kids to where I am today. It is just amazing. And I'm going to just tell you a little story. I'm going to tell you 2 stories about my 2 sons. By the time my kids are 9 and 11 years old, I can no longer put my children to bed and I can no longer wake them up in the morning. I am so trapped in the disease of alcoholism that I cannot care for my children. So they have to take care of themselves. They have to set alarms. They have to get up themselves. And this morning, my 9-year-old son gets up and gets himself up. He comes into the kitchen. His mother is passed out on the floor and a drink is spilled. And this is the reality of a 9-year-old living with a practicing alcoholic. He looks at me. He steps over me. He gets his cereal, his bowl, the milk, puts it together, steps back over me, and sits down and eats his breakfast. And he's no further from me than you are. And feels nothing. That's the disease of alcoholism. It takes the soul of our children. My oldest son was my caretaker. And I don't know if you've seen somebody who's drinking a lot and taking pills, especially downers. We don't breathe too good. And many is the time that my youngest son, I have come to with him screaming, "Mom, wake up, wake up, are you dead?" And me to come to and see the fear in his eyes. And you know what? I haven't had to see that kind of fear in anybody's eyes because of something I'm doing. And for that, I've been overpaid in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. My son James was, when I got sober, he was 14 years old. My sons were 14 and 16. I woke up one day and my son was a full-blown drug addict. And what happened was 6.5 years later, he came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and he said, "I knew AA worked because AA transformed my mother. I am not the same person I was when I came in here 35 years ago. But she's there. She's always there. And if I take a drink of alcohol, she'll always be there. That mean woman who drinks alcohol is always there." And I know for me that the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells me that I get a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. That indicates that I need to take action in order to maintain my sobriety. This is a gift from God. It's grace. We have been given grace. But let me tell you, if we don't treasure it and take care of it, we lose it. We absolutely lose it. And in this program, it doesn't make any sense. It's this is, you got to give it away to keep it. Well, what kind of nonsense is that? You know, it's all of these things that we have to do in order to maintain our sobriety. What happened for me is I ended up having a car wreck in Dallas, Texas. And I'm a blackout drinker, and I had other car wrecks, not severe, but this one was severe. And I ended up calling the police, telling them that my car had been stolen. And here comes the police with my husband. And I'm taken to the Irving police station. And I get to see that look in the non-alcoholic's eyes that just doesn't understand why we do the things we do. And this policeman looked at my husband and he said, "Just take her home and sober her up." And on the way home, he said, "Polly, there's a treatment center and it's not far from our house and I wish you would go." And that night I entered treatment for the first time. Now this was a county detox. This was not a nice jitter joint. It was a county detox. I went in there. It was a 7-day detox. And I loved it. I loved sitting up all night telling war stories. And I loved, talking, and everybody's got a bigger story than the other one. You just tell lies. And here I was, somebody who drank at home and abused her children. I mean, I didn't even have, I always wanted one of these really exciting stories. And Fran and I were just talking about one of the women I sponsor, and she had an affair with a one-legged preacher. That's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I want. And I'm one of the people that comes into AA and has all my affairs sober. And I promise you that's not fun. That'll bring so much shame on you, you can't even bear it. And what happened for me is I went in there, I loved what I was doing, I loved it. They started taking us to AA meetings. I loved the laughter. I loved the camaraderie. And this is a program of attraction. That's what it says. I want to be an attraction. I want to come to your podium dressed in a dress and, dressed properly for the podium. I want to be an attraction. I'm married. I want to act like a married, sober woman. This is a program of attraction. You have a meeting of attraction. This meeting is attractive. It feels good. You laugh. It's good. AA is a program of attraction. And I loved it. And while I was in there, I had a jitter house romance, where sick falls in love with sick and you walk off into happy destiny. We walked off into happy destiny for 58 days. And I was brought back into that treatment center. I was 12 steps out of a motel in Euless, Texas. And I had been beaten up and numerous and sundry other things. And I'd reached that place in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that talks about pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Because now I knew what the problem was. The problem was sobriety. I can't live with what happened in that motel. I can't face that. I can't live with the kind of mother I am, the kind of daughter I am, the kind of wife I am. I can't live with who I am. I can't stand it. And see, I don't know. I've been in AA for, sort of. I was looking at him instead of hearing anything. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand anything about the program. I didn't know about the steps and the traditions and the concepts. I didn't know if I apply these 36 principles in my life that my life is going to change and things are going to be better. I didn't understand all that. All I knew was I can't live sober inside my own skin. And I can do time. And I did that 7 days. And I left that detox center. And I got a bottle of scotch, and I got a bottle of Valium, and I checked into a motel. I don't believe that there's anybody in this room that doesn't have an angel in your life. Someone who leads us to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had such a woman in my life. And she knew nothing about the disease of alcoholism, but she loved me. And she said that day that something came over her. And today I know what that something is. That something is God working in my life through her. And she drove around until she found my car parked outside this motel. And what happened is I'd gone back into the room and I had just closed the door. It hadn't latched. And she pushed that door open and she found me laying there. And on April the 8th of 1977, I was pronounced dead on arrival in a hospital in Bedford, Texas. By God's grace and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I stand here. Everybody who comes into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is given the gift of grace. And grace is a free gift. God just gives it to us. Because what we get is one day I cannot not drink. I loved my children. I loved them. I had one who was an athlete and one who was a musician. And, I would promise them, I'll be at your game, I'll be at your concert. I loved my children. But what would happen is I would take a drink of alcohol and I couldn't get there. And then I'd be passed out on the sofa. And at the end of the sofa, I would see that little face. And that little face would be, Mom, you promised. You promised you'd be there. And I'd start screaming, can't you see I'm sick? You don't think about anybody but yourself. And of course, I wasn't thinking about anybody but myself. And, and I loved my children. But I couldn't show up for my kids. And I couldn't live with that guilt. And what happened is I got sent to a hospital in Bedford, Texas. And they brought me back to life. And today I stand here in grace with the gift. And what happens with us here, one day I can't drink no matter what. I can't show up for my sons. I can't drink no matter what. And what happens is God just lifts it. And I don't want to drink anymore. And all I have to do is a few simple things. That's all I have to do. In order to keep the gift, is just do a few simple things. And not even hard. Just a few simple things. And I get to enjoy the life I have today. What happened for me in 1977, no different than 2012, they don't take kindly to people who try to kill themselves. And so what happened is I was 5150 to a psychiatric hospital. And I was there for 72 hours, which was enough time for my husband to obtain a court order from a Fort Worth judge that I was a detriment to myself and others, and I was court committed to treatment. And I entered that treatment center on April the 11th of 1977. And by God's grace, I'm sober today. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says on 164 in A Vision for You that great events will come to pass. That's the great fact for us all. But I have to stay spiritually fit. I'm a kind of vanilla kind of gal. I don't do a whole lot different today than I did when I came here 35 years ago. I read a few non-approved AA literature books, and I sit quietly. I get to do it a little bit longer than I used to because I'm retired. And but I used to, when I worked, I'd get up in the morning and I'd allow myself 15 minutes. Today, I can take longer than that. But I start my day with God. I start my day with God. And I just ask Him, I ask what I pray, just like it says in the 11th step prayer, upon awakening, I ask God to direct my thinking and my actions. I ask Him to show me anyone that I can help. I ask Him to be useful. I want to be useful today. That's what I want to be. I want to be useful. I want my day to count. I want it to count. And I know that if I do something for another alcoholic, it'll count. And that's the way I live my life today. It's not a whole lot different than when I first came in. I think the first 3 years of my sobriety was not great. I just wanted someone to fix me. And what I did is I ended up having to hit a bottom sober behind relationships and sex. I just wanted you to fix me. I wanted you to make me feel better. I just wanted to feel better. And what happened is I ended up destroying myself. I ended up 2 years sober, 38 years old, sitting in an abortion clinic with teenagers because of my actions I took that placed myself in a position to be hurt. These were my actions. And I did it sober. And I have so many of the women I sponsor have had abortions, but it just seems worse if you're sober. That was the way my head thought about it. It just seemed worse because I did these things sober. But what happens is that I know without a doubt that my God is so forgiving. That no matter what, He has forgiven me because He gave me a set of steps. And I went to those boys and I made amends. And what I did is I promised them. I made amends, and then I said, I will be the very best mom I can be for the rest of my life. And I've done that. I've done that. I have been there. And I want you to know today, I'm a fantastic grandma. I am a roller coaster riding grandma. And I have, those of you who may have heard me in the past, let me just quick say, I get so excited about stuff. Let me just quick say, at 3.5 years of sobriety, I ended up marrying the man of my dreams. And one of the things is that Dave had known me since I was 6 months sober. And he knew most of the men I'd had affairs with because he sponsored them. He knew more about me than he needed to. And he loved me anyway. And what he told me we were best buds. We had none. With him, I never had an inappropriate relationship. And at 3.5 years sober, and we'd been friends for 3 years. And Dave came to me and he said, "Polly, I'm in love with you." He said, "But you need to get something straight. I don't want to have an affair with you. I want to marry you." And that's not supposed to happen to people like me. That's not the kind of thing that happens. But I want you to know that Dave and I, if God willing and the creek don't rise, come October the 27th, Dave and I will celebrate 32 years of marriage. And he's still the man of my dreams. And I'm Dave's fourth wife. He's my second. I suffer. But what Dave and I knew how to take a hostage, but we didn't know how to have a relationship. And we came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we wanted to have a relationship, and we wanted to stay married. And I'm here to tell you that that's not always easy, because we're selfish, self-centered people, and we're people who in the 12 and 12, it says that we are people who are incapable of having a true partnership with another human being. That's us. That's who we are. So what happens is I get to have a true partnership with another human being because of this program. Because of this program. For 32 years I get to do it. And the good news is I'm still in love with Dave just like I was 32 years ago. More in love. And that's the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've got to walk this walk with my best friend. He was my best friend. And you know what we've learned to do is we treat each other nice. We do nice things. And we try real hard to stay out of self. So both of us make sure we're in a lot of service in AA, because that's how you do it. If you're not in a lot of service, you have to get self-centered. So I stay in a lot of service in Alcoholics Anonymous. I told you that my youngest son got sober at 6.5 years sober. He called me up on the phone and he told me, "Mom, I want what you have." And he ended up going to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he's 28 years sober. My oldest son got sober 4 years ago. So if you're out there and you've got somebody, just don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle, because he's sober. He doesn't do AA. He's got a spiritual path, and it works for him. And you know what? I'm a member of Al-Anon and as well as AA. And you know, if I just stay in my own hula hoop and stay out of his business, he does just fine. He does just fine. A few years ago, I had this amazing story. Everything was wonderful. One of our children was not. She was still out. But Mike, Dave's oldest son, his oldest child, Mike, he ended up dying at age 42. But he was sober. He was 9 years sober. So, he was sober. But Kim never came. She couldn't get into the program. She couldn't get in. My son James got sober when he was 21 years old. My oldest son has gotten sober. He got sober at 48 years old. So everybody was in. And my kids were married. I had these beautiful 5 grandchildren. And a lot of that's turned upside down now. They're divorces and it's separations and a lot of stuff. But the good news is that I still have my relationships with all these people, especially my grandchildren. And this past weekend, my husband and I flew to Chicago, got in a car with my son James, drove 10 hours to Rochester, New York, because our grandson is at the Rochester Institute of Technology. And those that have heard me talk before through the years, Ryan's 19, he's my deaf grandson. The son that I had my fist out. How could God do this to us? Look at how much service we do in AA. And we get a deaf child. And, I know people who have babies all the time and they don't even want them. And we want our baby so bad. And he's born deaf. And I was so angry at God. I was so angry at God. You ought to see this young man. You ought to see him. He's a sophomore at RIT. He's studying to be a civil engineer. But because his parents were in AA and they were relieved of the bondage of self, when it came to this child, it never cost too much. It never took too much. And this child is absolutely handicapped in no way. The miracle of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we went to this place up in New York. and they call it the Grand Canyon of New York. And I promise you, it's not the Grand Canyon, but it was really pretty. And it had, I don't know how many steps. I heard you climbed all these steps up to the top of the mountain, and it was really a lot of steps. I'm like hundreds and hundreds of steps, okay? And I did it. And my grandson's looking at me, and he says, "Grandma, you're hot." And I believe, I'm in these rooms and I hang out with young people, and it keeps you young, and we get to do all this good stuff in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm just telling you, if you're new, you're in for a ride of your life. If you've been here a while and you've kind of been slacking, get busy. Light the fire. Turn on the juice. Let's go. Get busy in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You got to start here. This meeting is fabulous. I love AA. God bless you.